Hello, Palmer Academy. Happy Monday. It's Mr. Sars Mystery. I'm here to give you today's assembly. It's the start of a new week, and I hope you're ready for all this week's learning. Now, today's assembly will be on Martin Luther King. Miss Davies is going to start the assembly by reading you a story about the great man. After the story has finished, I'll come back and I'll just give you some more information on about him. Okay? Enjoy the story.
Good afternoon, children, and welcome to the story time part of our assembly. It's Miss Davis here, and as history lead at the Palmer Academy, I was really happy that Mr. Suarez Mystery said he'd be doing an assembly about this incredibly important man. So our book today is from the Little People, Big Dreams range of books, and obviously this book is all about Martin Luther King Jr. Little Martin was a spiritual boy from Atlanta who came from a long line of preachers. His dad was a preacher, his uncle was a preacher, his grandfather was a preacher. Maybe he'd become a great preacher too. One day, a friend invited him over to play. Martin was shocked when he was asked to leave because he was black. That day, he realised something terrible was going on. The terrible thing was called segregation. It meant that public places like restaurants and buses had separate spaces for black and white people. Martin and his friend were sent to different schools. Martin believed that one shouldn't remain silent or accept something if it is wrong. He promised himself that when he grew up, he'd fight injustice with the most powerful weapon of all, words. Martin studied at universities in Georgia, Pennsylvania, and Massachusetts, where he read about Mahatma Gandhi, the man who had improved the lives of millions of Indians with peaceful methods of protest. When he finished his studies, Martin moved to Alabama and became the pastor of a church in Montgomery. Every Sunday, from his pulpit, he encouraged his congregation to speak up about things that mattered. One evening, a woman called Rosa was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white man on a bus. Martin asked the people in his community not to take the bus again until the law was changed. Many citizens were inspired by Rosa's story and Martin's word. Suddenly, buses were almost empty. They stayed empty for more than a year until segregation on Montgomery buses finally ended. It was the first major civil rights action in America, but not the last. Martin encouraged people all over the country to stand up for their rights and join in with peaceful protest. They were often attacked, and Martin was arrested 29 times, but he and his followers never fought back with force. He knew that hate can't drive out hate, only love can. Martin helped to organise a protest march on Washington, where he gave a life-changing speech. It began with 4 simple yet powerful words: I have a dream. The next year, Martin became the youngest person to win the Nobel Peace Prize. His words of hope, peace and justice called a nation to change its laws and make them equal for everyone. And if you listen to your heart, you can still hear little Martin asking you to keep his dream alive. A dream of a world where we are judged by our character, not by the colour of our skin. And here is a timeline of Martin Luther King, which I will put on Teams if you would like to have more of a look of that. But I hope you enjoyed the story and the assembly today, and I think there's something that we can all learn from Martin Luther King Jr. Take care, guys.
Thank you, Miss Davies, for reading us that story on Martin Luther King. So today is Martin Luther King Day. I'm just going to open up. Sorry. I'll share screen first. Haven't I? So today is Martin Luther King Day. Now, the aim of the assembly today is to understand who Martin Luther King was and why he is remembered for the celebration of a national holiday in America. Now, you would have listened to Miss Davies, and she would have given you lots of information about Martin Luther King and why he was such a great man. Now, Martin Luther King Day is an American national holiday, marking the birthday of Martin Luther King Jr. He was born on January the 15th, 1929, and the holiday is held in January each year. Now, Martin Luther King was born in Atlanta in the USA. That's the United States of America. And as a child, he enjoyed doing all the sorts of things that you would enjoy doing too. He enjoyed playing sports, he learned how to play the piano, and enjoyed going to the school. But life was sometimes difficult for Martin Luther King. That was because he was African American. Now, in America in the 1950s and 1960s, life was particularly unfair for African Americans. They weren't allowed to use the same facilities as white people in the United States of America. There were separate areas for African Americans and white people on public transport like buses and trains. African Americans had to use separate areas of parks and restaurants and even separate toilets to those used by white people. In some states in the USA, African American children weren't allowed to go to school, or they had to go to separate schools. These usually weren't given a lot of money and didn't have many resources. Is this fair? And I want you to think about if this is fair. Imagine if in your school life, if we had different toilets, if we had different areas in the playground, maybe different areas in the lunch hall. You know, some of you do come to school on the bus or public transport. Would it be fair to have different areas for white people and black people? So just take a moment to think about how your life is different compared to when Martin Luther King was a child. Could you imagine if this happened in the year 2021? Now, why is Martin Luther King famous? So Martin Luther King was a Christian. He wanted to make sure that all Americans had the same rights regardless of their race. He became a civil rights activist. This means he campaigned for improved rights for people to try and make all people equal. This is a very important moment in history in America and for the world. Now, in 1955, Rosa Parks, an African-American woman, was traveling on a bus when a white man got on. In the 1950s, African-Americans would have to give up their seats to white people. Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat, and she was arrested by the police. Martin Luther King asked African Americans to protest peacefully by not traveling on the buses in the city where Rosa had been traveling. They boycotted. That means they did not use the buses. And they didn't use the buses for 385 days. That's more than a year. The boycott ended when a court ruled that the segregation of people, and what that means is the separate areas for people with different colored skin on the buses should be stopped. Now, in 1963, Martin Luther King led a huge march on Washington, D.C., the US Capitol. Here, in front of a huge crowd, Martin Luther King made his famous "I Have a Dream" speech. It's a really, really famous speech. And here is a short extract of what he said. I have a dream that one day little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as brothers and sisters. What do you think he meant by that? Imagine if you were on the playground and you weren't able to play with someone who had different colour skin to you. Martin Luther King achieved a lot of things. In 1964, he received the Nobel Peace Prize for his work to end racial prejudice in the United States. Law was changed so that everyone could vote, no matter of your skin colour. It is because of Martin Luther King and others like him that people in the United States have equal rights today, although there is still a long way to go. Thank you for listening to Assembly. I hope that was it gave you a lot to think about, and I hope that you're going to carry on with your learning this week. And I'll see you again for another Assembly, or you might have seen me in the PE video for this week. Okay, bye-bye.